everyone. Welcome to Conversations with Sekani, a podcast for people in their 20s who are trying to figure out life and not get lost along the way. A lot of people aren't actually broken. They are just disconnected from their body, from their truth, and from themselves. And the systems meant to help often teach them to ignore those signals instead of understanding them. Today's guest is Devin Scott. He blends psychology, body work, and spiritual practice to help people reconnect with their inner wisdom and break free from patterns that keeps them stuck. Devin, welcome to Conversations with Sekani. It's a pleasure to have you here.
It's a pleasure to be here, Sekani. Thank you for
All right.
having me.
Okay, so yes, I want us to talk about your early years, right? So take me back to your early years. On the outside, things looked successful, but what was really going on beneath the surface?
So when I was in my 20s, I was following the script that my parents and society gave me. I went to school, I got the good job, I had a partner, I had a house, and on paper, I looked like I was doing really well, but behind the scenes, I was constantly drinking. I was having challenges with disordered eating. I was a bit explosive in the sense I would either be like in a really good mood or I would just be really irritable and frustrated. My relationship and the ones that had come before it were toxic. We fought all the time. I felt terrible about myself, and it just eventually hit a breaking point where I was like, this is not a life I can sustain. But this life that's been given to me that I tried to be a good boy for and do the things I was being told, it just none of it was really working for me.
Wow. Okay, so from your story, right? I feel like a lot of people they have this thing they set, right? People's definition of success differ, but there is the societal definition of success, right? Which is grow up, have kids, get married, get a good job. I mean, yes, there's societal success and there is personal success, right? So, from your story, you were successful according to society, right? According to what your parents wanted, but it wasn't really what you wanted for yourself, right? So, and I think what is most important is personal success. What would you define success as? What do you think is more important to you, right? So, with your story, it says you went through a lot, right? You from the eating disorder to night terrors, and then, like you said, you realized that it wasn't what you wanted for yourself. So, talking about therapy, right? How did traditional therapy and medical systems impact you during that time?
So I started therapy when I was maybe 26. At that
Hmm.
point, I was already a very cognitive, intellectual person. I worked in research. I studied math and economics. I went to law school. Like my brain
Hmm.
was trained to do analysis and
Exactly.
come up with an explanation.
Hmm.
And and still to this day, what I've learned is that if I work hard enough, my brain can justify anything. It can come up with an excuse for anything. Um, and when I went to therapy, I got diagnosed with depression. I got diagnosed with generalized anxiety disorder. And it actually made something inside of me that I didn't understand worse, which was that I believed I was the problem. I believed I was not worthy of a life that would be fulfilling to me. I believed I deserved harm from those who were intimate to me. And when I went to therapy, I got my diagnoses and I subtly was like, ah, yes, I am the problem. The life is not the problem. I am reacting poorly to it. And what I got was better at justifying staying in my situations that weren't working for me. I would label my thoughts as irrational or unreasonable, and I worked to settle my behaviors that seemed inconvenient to everyone, reduce my drinking or moderate my exercise or do enough breath work and meditation that the night terrors stopped. The problem was I was living a life that I didn't want to be living. And my
Mm.
body was screaming this message for me. And instead of beginning to listen, the first thing I did was begin to shut it down further, which maybe reduced some of the things we would label as symptoms in Western psychology, but they weren't making a life that was good for me.
Okay. All right. So, you said it got to a point you started telling yourself that you were the problem, right?
Yeah.
I don't think that wasn't a good approach, right? So, was there a moment where you actually started to question the idea that you were the problem?
It was slow. There's never a single aha moment, but I think it was on the non-traditional paths that I started to realize this. I fell in love with meditation. I fell in love with yoga, and falling in love with both of those practices really transformed me. But the thing that probably singularly started to shift me was I did this program that I'm now trained to teach called Mindful Self-Compassion. And
Mm.
it was an 8-week program using mindfulness to learn how to be in a better relationship with yourself. And when I started that program, I just realized how mean I was to myself, how darkly I spoke to myself, how punitive and oppressive I was with myself. And I did that program, and slowly, slowly, I started to relate to myself as I would have wished a parent to relate to me, wishing the best for me, wanting my happiness, wanting to reduce my suffering. And I continued that practice for years. I had a peer group with two women, and every week we would meet and we would compassionately listen to each other, then do self-compassion exercises and talk about how to do it. And the deeper and deeper I got into self-compassion, which is still a large part of my work, the more it changed my way of relating to myself. I would think if I was my own child, I would not look at my drinking and think he's a problem. I think he's
Mm.
suffering. Like he's clearly trying to disassociate, to get out of his body. The experience he is in is so challenging for him that he's trying to tap out. And I think self-compassion was the thing that started to change. But then it was experiential. When I started listening to myself instead of ignoring myself, I started to feel better, and I started to see that this was just a different approach that was making a better life for me instead of making me easier for people around me.
Mm. Wow. Okay, I must say thank you so much, Devin, for that one, right? Because I feel like people need to hear this because a whole lot of people are out there. They think they are the problem, right? But what they do not understand is you actually need to listen to yourself, right? For there to be a problem, then there's something going on, right? That you're probably trying to suppress some kind of emotions, and that is what make people resort to doing different things like drinking and whatever, right? So it's important to understand you're not the problem, right? There's another problem that is not you, basically. So all
And
right,
you're a
so
part of the problem. If you're in the problem, you're co-creating it. You're enabling it. You're like, and your behavior can be problematic, but it's not that you as a person are fundamentally flawed or unfit for life or undeserving of goodness.
mm,
Uh, it allows the softness to ask, why are my behaviors creating and sustaining a life I don't want? That's not
mm,
self-kindness, and it's not
mm,
good. Like I had a long pattern of dating narcissistic partners, and narcissistic abuse cuts away your sense of self and self-worth slowly over
mm,
time. And I think part of recovery from that, you start to see the narcissist as the villain because they didn't love you. They didn't love you as a person. They loved you as a tool for them to
mm,
use. But eventually you start to see the other side of that equation as I sat in a relationship for years that I didn't want to be in, and I grew bitter and I grew resentful. And that's energy that my partner was feeling, whether or not he was good to me. I was also sitting there every day, not wanting to be there. And he could always feel that. And that's
mm,
also a subtle form of violence. Being in a space you don't want to be in, people know it. And then it makes
Mm.
them feel unwanted, unwelcome, like they're never going to be enough. And I was not a problem, but that is not unproblematic behavior, right? Like I can still face that, but I can face it now without shame because I have warmth for myself that I'm not fundamentally broken.
Mm. Alright, wow. Okay, I think I just learned something new, right? From our discussion, honestly. And yes, I wanted to talk to someone out there, right? Probably people in their 20s. So how do you think high functioning struggle gets overlooked or probably misunderstood?
High functioning struggle gets overlooked because it's not a problem to society.
Mm.
When I look at the diagnostic manual for psychology, which I used when I was a psychotherapist, I I don't think of I think of it as largely a pseudoscience document. There's nothing really there, but it's kind of a
Mm.
listing of behaviors that capitalism or colonialism or patriarchy find inconvenient to deal with,
Mm.
that don't work within the system well, and that society would prefer you to be a good little boy or a good little girl and go to the office and do your job and then go home and like raise your kids, and it's a way of boxing you into a life that's convenient for the government, for others. And when you're complying, no one's going to say it's wrong. They don't really care that you're happy or unhappy. They care that you're
Mm.
easy to deal with.
Mm. Wow. Okay. All right. That's very true, I must say, right? Because I mean, imagine telling someone, I work 9 to 5, I earn well, and I'm not happy. Yeah, they will immediately start looking at you like someone who is crazy, right? But I mean, if you look deeper, if you don't enjoy what you're doing, it's a sad thing, right? It's because it's burnout, and then from burnout to mental health issues. And yes, like you said, society has found a way to normalize it. And I feel, yes, at the end of the day, is for the betterment of the government, right? So they try to box us in so we can do what we don't want to, right? So yes, talking about breaking patterns and reconnection, right? So you've said that symptoms are actually signals, right? So can you break that down in a way people can actually understand?
Yeah. So first I'll say that when I say symptoms, I mean what Western psychology would call symptoms, which are
Mm.
things that are painful or hard or inconvenient to society. So you think of depression, impulsivity, distractibility, anxiety. We could think of these things as symptoms, or we could think of them as things that evolved over many, many thousands of years in the human species as
Mm.
adaptive ways to respond to our environment. And that's really what emotions are. And eventually, if emotions don't get dealt with, they solidify in something in our physical body, and then it becomes a
Mm.
physical symptom.
Okay.
But if we pause and we think of, oh, our body's designed adaptively for so long, they're beautiful machines. What if instead of thinking I'm having a weird reaction to my
Mm.
environment, maybe I'm having wisdom that I need to listen to? And it will guide us towards growth or alignment or seeing a part of ourselves or making a decision, because it's here for us to learn about ourselves, to learn about what we like, to learn about where we want to go, and to transform us.
Mm. Alright. Okay, so you mentioned you mentioned that you do meditation, yoga, and somatic work, right? So what changed when you discovered these things?
Well, when I first started meditation, the first thing that happened was I realized I was in chronic pain.
Hmm. Okay.
I was disassociated from my hips down. I had like no feeling, and I was a marathon runner at that point, and I guess I had just been running on bad form for a decade and didn't even realize it because I was so detached from my physical
Mm.
body. And the first thing when I started meditating was realizing I wasn't just like having these externalizing behaviors or these night terrors. My whole body was in discomfort all the
Mm.
time. And that
Mm,
was really like humbling for me. But what I had done was I had internalized everything. I'd done the very capitalistic thing, the very of childhood trauma thing, and I removed myself from my body entirely, disassociated, went right to my like thinking brain all the time and just treated my body like a machine. And then when I looked at the damage I'd done to my body by doing that, it was very quick for me to see. Clearly, I can't treat my body like this for another 70 years. Something's got to change.
okay, all right. Well, I must say, right, what your experience is mostly similar to a whole lot of my guests that talk about yoga. They all say the same thing when it comes to yoga and meditation, actually. So, talking about the body, right? How did learning to listen to your body shift the way you made decisions?
It's still a very learning, growing practice, but I will say when I was in my 20s, I kind of couldn't make a decision unless I had a justification for it. I needed to be able to say it was rational or reasonable or justifiable. I put it through the logic. And that's really just disguised distrust. That's just I can't make a decision because it's the one I want to make. And I've had a series of experiences, especially in the last year with secrecy and betrayal, that really wiped this out of me for now. Where I realized actually I'm just one human and I will never, ever, ever have all the information.
Mm,
People will always be doing things I'm not seeing. There are sciences at play and metaphysics at play that I just don't have understanding of. And actually, at the end of the day, the only thing we have to make decisions on that we can rely on is whether or not we feel good or bad in a situation, whether we like it or dislike it, whether we want it or don't want it, whether we trust someone or don't trust someone. And we can resist that or we can trust it.
mm,
And increasingly, my decision-making process is simple. Go into the body, ask the body, do you like this? Do you not like this? Do you want this? Do you not want this? If you want it, but you're scared of it, why are you scared of it? What resources do you need to make that decision? And at the end of that process, and I'm not there yet, maybe I'll never be there, is a really deep form of self-trust
mm,
that I can just make decisions for me, and that is enough.
mm. All right. So it has to do with self-trust, actually. Right. So yes, I want us to talk about healing and identity, right? So you work with childhood trauma, abuse, and relationship instability, right? So what pattern do you see most often in people?
I don't know why I feel called to talk about this particular one. I work with a lot of people who are like me, where they came out of
Mm,
childhood instability or narcissistic abuse or bad relationships as like the good person. I say the good person in quotes. The martyr, the savior, the healer, the person who's always
mm,
trying to make everyone feel good. Um, and it can actually be a really sticky identity to deal with because it's dripped in moralism. Because when you have this really strong belief that you're a good person because you're helping everyone around you, it's very hard to shift or change or question. Um, but I think one of the really important parts around the journey of being like the good person, the high performer, the hyper mature, is you start to realize that actually you've engaged in lots of things that you have no idea if they're good or bad because they were all about control. When you're emotionally monitoring and managing everyone around you, and you are trying to constantly push them into good moods or into the best version of themselves, you're a very controlling person. It's highly
mm,
manipulative. It strips people of accountability and consequences. It enables all sorts of bad actors. And when you enable the bad actors, you actually help them to harm other people. And you become
mm,
really interwoven in a tapestry of violence, all for the kind of control of making other people like you or other
mm,
people think of you as a good person. I think this is a really hard identity shift for people that I work with was for me the idea that I'm a good person and then eventually realizing No one is a good person. No one is a bad
Mm,
person. We actually don't even have the wisdom to know if behavior is good or bad. But you start to shift instead into what behavior for me holds integrity, holds alignment. What are my core values? When am I soft and when am I fierce?
mm,
And the moralism starts to fade away. And you stop thinking that, like, I'm a good person, I'm a healer, I'm a savior. And you start to exist in a lot more confusion about who you are or what your role is,
mm,
but have more confidence that your decisions are ones you can stand by.
mm. I felt like you just spoke directly to me. Like I was trying to do like some form of self assessment. I was trying to assess myself, like, could I, possess these attributes, right? But I don't know, right? I would have to figure that one out. But I don't think anyone is really a good person. People are just trying their best, right? We are all trying to be the best version of ourselves, right? So I really don't have a take on that one actually. So all right. So I would like to ask, right, why do so many people stay stuck in circles they are aware of, but they can't seem to break it?
Because our body is designed to like the familiar.
Hmm.
Everything about us is designed to like the familiar. It's a pattern of control. Safety comes from knowing our environment and knowing that we have a strategy for handling it. If you look at yoga, this is samskaras and vasanas. It's a part of the karmic holding pattern. We come in with a certain perspective of the world and certain strategies for how to handle it. And
Hmm.
that's what keeps our body feeling like it can handle our world. And whenever we step outside of it, our body's going to panic.
Hmm.
Even if we're in a terrible situation, it's one that we understand. It's one that we know, and it's one that we believe that we can handle. Every time we step out of it, we're going into the unknown. And actually, our bodies are not well equipped to go into the unknown. We need to bring in a lot of resources, a lot of social support, a lot of tenderness, and we make a lot of mistakes. But you have to just keep taking the actions to go into that uncomfortable life and deal with the liminality, that weird space of discomfort, and let your body slowly adjust to your new life. And where people get stuck a lot is they'll take the first step, panic because
Hmm.
they feel worse, and run back. And that's the great trick of it, is that it's not going to feel better for a while. Maybe it'll feel better for like a month in a haze state because there's
Hmm.
a flood of hormones or like delusional thinking. But it's going to hit a point where you just want to run back, where you question yourself. And it takes time for the nervous system and the physical body to adjust to something new.
Hmm. Hmm, familiarity, right? Our body is familiar with one pattern, so therefore it's difficult to, change the pattern you're familiar with. And the best thing is just try changing it. It might seem unfamiliar for a while, but you would eventually get used to it. Okay,
Yeah.
that's it right there. Okay, so talking about the mind, body, and spiritual integration, right? So you combine psychology with body work and energy practices. So how do those pieces actually work together?
So when I'm working on someone, what it looks like is they're on a massage table and I'm
Mm,
doing body work, energy work, and we're talking about it. But behind the scenes, the way I think about it, I look a lot at this yogic version of anatomy called Panchakosha, which has 5 levels of us. And the
mm,
first is like our food sheath, which is our physical body. And you maintain that with exercise, diet, things like that. And the second is our energy sheath, and that
mm,
is maintained through like breath work and chanting. And then we have 2 mental layers, a lower brain and an upper brain. And then we
mm,
have our soul layer, which is our connection to the divine, where we're being sent our purpose in life. And my vision of health is trying to get these 5 to speak together, because when they're speaking
mm,
together, the universe starts to flow through us. We start to channel. our mission starts to become aligned with our identity. Our emotions are like comfortably involved, and we have the energy and the physicality to put it into play. But when we're not aligned, it kind of ripples down in all sorts of ways. Like if our emotions aren't handled, they can drip down and disturb our physical layer, which will look like muscle tension or eventually organ issues. They
Mm,
also ripple up into our higher layer where we get anxiety and rumination. And so you're always just kind of looking at them all at one, but understanding they're all interrelated. And so in my theory of mind, when I'm working on the body, if you release something in the body, it's always going to go up to something more subtle. If you're
mm,
releasing it in the body, it was probably an emotion or a story or a self-identity that got locked physically. And so if I'm releasing it, we also need to release it as it moves up to that next level, to that energetic level, to that emotional level. We need to process it through talk or energy work so that it can leave. Because if we don't do that part, if we don't deal with the emotions after the physical change, it's going to re-solidify back into the body. They kind of all have to be moving all at once.
mm. Right. Wow. Okay, thank you so much for that one, right? And it's something I would have to revisit to, understand it better and actually try and adopt some practices from it, right? So, I want to ask this one, right? So for someone new to this, what is a simple way to start connecting with themselves?
I this is kind of a practice I drew from when I worked in early childhood education. My favorite curriculum for young
Oh,
children is called High Scope, and they have this tenet in their curriculum called Plan, Do, Review, which the child has
mm,
free time to play, but before they play, you sit with them and they tell you what they're going to do, and then they go and
mm,
play, and then they come back and they tell you how it went.
mm,
And it builds this really core muscle of like, what do you want to do? How did it go? And
mm,
I think this is the core muscle that a lot of us have been deprived of in capitalism and colonialism, is we
mm,
never check in with ourselves. And I think that check-in is the easiest way to enter the body. Choose to do something, do it mindfully, don't multitask, and then ask yourself, did I like that or did I not like that? That could be as simple as, I think I want a cup of coffee. Go buy the
mm,
cup of coffee. Drink the coffee, don't multitask, and then ask yourself, feel the physical sensations. Was that pleasant for me? Was that
mm,
unpleasant for me? And this can be very, very small, but usually when people start this practice, they do a few things a day that they think they want to do and they check back in. They find they don't have a great deal of awareness of what their body likes or doesn't like, or even what it feels like to like or dislike. But if you do this slowly over time, you really start to get into a better relationship with how things feel in your body.
mm. All right. So it's checking in, right, and being accountable to what you you decided to check in. Okay. So thank you so much, Devin. This has been amazing, I must say. And I have this final question for you, right? I need you to talk to someone out there, right, who probably feels stuck in patterns that they do not understand. What is the first step towards actually changing their lives?
I think the first step, I mean, it can look different for everyone, but what I offer everyone in that
Mm,
moment is grace. I think we are all exactly who we need to be to get through the moment at our
mm,
default. Our bodies are just trying really, really hard to survive and make do. And I think healing can become really hard if we layer shame and inadequacy on top of it or put perfectionism on it, that there's one way to heal or there's a linear path. And that creates urgency that I have to get out of this really quick. And the reality is, we don't get out of anything quick. It's a slow process. And so, what I would say is the more self-love you can give right now, that you are okay with who you are right now, and you can accept that these decisions were protective and aligned, the more space you create to change it. And this change starts with small actions today, not planning or hope for the future, not overthinking it, not healing your emotions, not talking about it endlessly. At the end of the day, the thing that changes you is starting to make decisions that make you a little uncomfortable. And every time you make one, no matter how small, you build the self-trust and the body capacity to make the next one.
Mm, mm. Okay. All right. So thank you so much, Devin. This has been amazing. Conversations like this are always so important, right? For especially young adults who are trying to figure out life. Like I said at the beginning, right? We need someone to tell us what to do, even if not what to do, but we need to see someone who has been in the shoes we are currently in, and the person was able to overcome, right? So we need to learn from people like you. Right. So that's why I love conversations like this. So thank you so much, Devin. This has been amazing. And it brings me to the final segment. It's called the rapid fire segment. All right. So starting now, control or surrender.
Surrender,
Hmm. Okay. Logic or intuition.
intuition,
Hmm. Healing or becoming.
becoming,
Hmm. What is one word that describes your old life?
rigid,
Hmm. All right. And finally, one word that describes how you live now.
confused.
Okay. I wouldn't have expected that, but if you say so, right? Okay, Gavin. Yes, where can listeners get to connect with you and learn more about your work?
I have a website. It's findyourmeaning.coach. My favorite way to keep in touch is I have a newsletter. So if they scroll to the bottom of any page, they can subscribe, and I try to send that out once a month. I'm also on social media, Instagram, devinscott.nyc. I'm new to it. I made it last year, and I'm committed to learning how to use social media in a way that's aligned to me this year. So I've already started posting, and I hope to keep posting throughout the year.
All right. Okay. Thank you so much, Devin. This has been amazing, I must say. And yeah, for your newsletter, I think I'm gonna check it out and probably subscribe so I could get more updates. So yes.
Uh, I
Thank you,
appreciate
Devin.
that.
All
It's
right.
been a
And
joy.
yeah, to my listeners, thanks for tuning in to Conversations with Sekani. If this episode sparked something in you, just as it did in me, make sure to share to someone who you think might need this and also subscribe so you don't miss out on new episodes. Thank you, Devin. Do have a wonderful day. Bye.